Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. It's Ren here, welcome to my room. In this video I'm going to be talking about the question of SE in INFJs via my experience. So admittedly, this is not necessarily a topic that I am the most expert on, but I was figuring that perhaps it would still be better if I dip my toes into the topic, because after all, it has to be done. Given that it's hard for me to speak technically about SE and INFJ, I think that it'd be more effective if I just refer to my own experiences and maybe even put forth some of these experiences as questions to you guys, so that you can tell me if you would agree that they represent SE experiences or SE manifestations. Maybe they would crisscross with some of your own experiences of SE or manifestations of SE, and from there hopefully a conversation will ensue. So where can I begin? Why was I reticent about talking about SE? I guess first of all because at a very objective level, the last time that I tested my functions, I took I took keys to cognition. I took that test and I can't remember what results I got. I think I got pretty high TI on that one, higher than probably it should be. But I took some other functions tests, and I believe that one of them is called Similar Minds, something like that. And that test was shocking because I actually got, a suggestion that I probably was an INFJ, because I scored very high on NI and reasonably, quite high on TI and FE. So those were the top functions. Probably, who knows how independent of my volition my answers were. In any case, that's what I got. But, and here's the interesting thing, I scored 5% on SE. So just to give you a quick rundown based on my memory, I think that I got 95% NI, I got 80% FE and TI, same FE and TI. And to me, that is reasonably correct, At times I think that my TI is more proficient than my FE, but in terms of frequency of use, I use FE more because it's easier and because it's more natural and permanent in a way. TI I use a lot too, but it's more tiring, psychically tiring. And I can really feel it, and that makes sense. But I got 95% and then 80% on D2 other functions, TI and FE. And then I scored 55% or 60% on any, I think. SI was relatively high as well, 50% or 55%. T was at 40%, I think. FI was at 35% or 40%, though I think I might have played it down a bit, And then SE was at 5%. You imagine, that's that's pretty ridiculous. So I'm sure that SE in me is not the least developed function, although it could be, maybe it is. In any case, that's extremely low. So you can imagine that from this perspective, it becomes hard for me to consider myself legitimate to give people advice or pseudo-technical or perspective on SEUs and INFJs, because I guess it's true that I could just happen to know by the book or just from having read a lot of articles on the topic what SE and INFJs consists of. It's just that because I feel somehow distant from it, I don't feel completely attached to it yet. Hopefully it will develop throughout my 30s and 40s as per the theory. I just find it hard to really just jump into the topic and make a video about it. That being said, here's the thing. here's why I think that my SE is probably more developed than the tests suggested via its results. We know that the I'm having an NI moment, sorry. We know that tests are faulty. We're not going to go back to that. I think most of us would agree on that. From what I remember, almost all the questions regarding SE were about I can live in the present moment. I live in the present moment. I enjoy the present moment for what it is. So it was very much a series of questions focused on being in the present moment. And like for sure, that's like something that I do not do well, because I live throughout life like this constant sense of detachment, anticipation. So when something's reached, I re-anticipate immediately. I live in the future all the time. And I feel like often alienated from my own presence, sometimes almost like alienated from my own body. And so, since all the questions about SE were geared towards that, I scored very low. That being said, I do think that in my life, I cultivate my SE to an extent. And not to say that I have super developed SE, but there are things in my life that tend to show that SE is still, extroverted sensing is still quite present, makes itself present. Sometimes it makes itself present by its inclusion in my routine. So in its inclusion in the necessary list of things that I need from day to day in order to feel at peace, in order to feel good, in order to feel satisfied with my day, in order to feel existentially sated. In other ways, I think it makes itself known negatively through a negative lens, that is through stress. So let's tackle maybe the positives first. So in what way do I get the sense that SE is important? Well, again, I really do not think that this only applies to INFJs. I think this applies to everyone. But let's say that I have a particular relationship with this. That could be an indication of SE being in my basic stack, albeit in the last spot. So I need to go for a walk absolutely every day. Usually it's half an hour to an hour, to be in communion with nature, and to be, to just be in nature, be far away from the office space from this. Well, how interesting is it that I call my room an office space? How is interesting? Like from a Freudian point of view, I really see my life as work towards philosophy. That's beside the point. So, yeah, like I need to just go for walks and exercise my body in that, admittedly not super intense way, but I still need to do it every day. So I do that. I like to do that. I used to like doing it while listening to music. Now I don't really listen to music whilst doing it. When I go for runs, I listen to music. But that's kind of because I much prefer walking than running. I just know that running is good. It's even better than walking, like for many reasons, in terms of making us feel more relaxed, and it has a whole host of health benefits. But I still much prefer walking. Sometimes running is a bit painful, depending on in what circumstances. So I listen to music, but in that case, music is here as a compensation device rather than something for its own sake. When I'm walking now, like I really got used to just not listening to music. Sometimes I bring my headphones to sort of like block the noise of cars from my ears so that I don't hear them, because I find that very frustrating. But here in this hometown of mine, it's a coastal town. The Mediterranean Sea is just over there. I can actually even see it if I stand in my room. So I love walking by the sea and enjoying these landscapes. And they bring a real sense of peace, contentment, plenitude, and I would feel empty, partially empty without them. even if I were not to go for a walk, like just one day, say like on a rainy day or something. Often rainy days, like to me, they are as potentially depressing as, well, they're potentially depressing as much because of the experience of a cloudy sky and a white sky, not a blue sky, because I'm very, very sensitive to the aesthetics of like weather as well. Extremely sensitive. So you could say it comes from the fact that I was born in Mediterranean climate, because I'm a southern Frenchman. Is that really SE? Again, but I feel like I have a peculiar kind of sensitivity to environment and weather, you know. And I draw a lot of my insights and experiences from like just looking at trees and the sea. I take them as kind of symbols, and I see them as having a life of their own. And a lot of my insight into philosophy comes from the experience of these simple elements of the everyday. In fact, not necessarily organic elements. I talk a lot about stuff like experiencing typing on my keyboard, or looking at the cover of a book, or looking through a window, or at walls. Like a lot of my writing is quite complex insights, very abstract, but it tends to sort of draw its resource of examples from building, keyboards, the sea, lamps, you know, just what I can experience as sense data, if you like, you know, and it usually starts from there. And I think this could suggest the NI-SE axis. And so a lot of my walks are great purveyors, like they're great tanks of potential insights in the making. And so I can really feel that. Then next to it, next to the walks, there is the music. And music is very important in my life as well. I've made some videos about how to cultivate NI, or how I cultivate NI with music. So listening to ambient records, to some experimental records. I listen to some noise records. I listen to some drone albums. I listen to some jazz stuff, but you know, like jazz and like more busy rock. I listen to rap music actually too. Maybe this will be surprising to you. I listen to pop music. I like some pop music. I listen to a lot of things, and there are clearly types of music at some points in the day that I just want to listen to because they're pure fun, and like maybe sometimes people would consider them to be kind of trash, you know. And I think it's okay to have like guilty pleasures, and in a way, no pleasure ought to ever really be guilty, you know, unless you listen to like Mambo Number 5 or something like that. But my mum loves that song, and you know, I can't blame her. Maybe she doesn't quite realize that it's a pretty sexist song. But so yeah, like, you know, I listen to Kanye West, and I listen to, like, I was talking to my girlfriends yesterday, and we were talking about how we actually quite like Ariana Grande, and so there is that pure enjoyment of, for example, Ariana Grande's voice, Kanye West's instrumentals. Sometimes it's not super deep, but there is like an oral pleasure that is to be felt. Sometimes a visual pleasure from the video clips, and like that matters too. I need that for my balance on top of the much more abstract stuff. So I have quite variegated tastes in music, but it also comes from this need to satisfy SE. And then I can talk about this some more, but I'll talk about how SE in my life can also be revealed or manifested negatively. So we often hear about how when we're stressed, we're in the grip. And so when we're in the grip, we're supposed to turn into ESTPs of sorts because our stack is reversed. So instead of being NIFE, TISE, it sort of looks like SE dominance. Obviously very stressful because we're not supposed to be SE dominance at all. So it looks like SE, TI, FE, NI. So that's the reverse stack, and that corresponds to the ESTP. Now, what I can say is, in a few respects, I think that in Ireland, I went through periods of intense stress, like when at times I felt like I was behaving like an ESTP, or rather I should say like the cliche of what an ESTP is pictured as usually. So I was partying a lot, and I was not being very intuitive, or at least I was just not thinking about the future. I was just indulging in the moments. I went to rave parties. I went to so many rave parties. And now I look at it, I'm like, what was I thinking? You know, like, it's not me. I was drinking, and I was just doing lots of partying, doing some kind of vaguely risky stuff. You know, I was taking risks. Now, like, it's a long way behind now, like, you know, but when I'm stressed, I tend to do these things. I take risks. I indulge in food. I indulge in consuming things. When I'm stressed, I'm like, I like to drink a bit of Coke. When I'm stressed, I drink a lot of Coke. I like some sweets sometimes. When I'm stressed, I just stuff myself with sweets. Or sometimes I think to myself, it's not good if I drink a lot of Coke because I'm going to fatten up. So I get some Diet Coke and I drink a bottle of Diet Coke. So it doesn't have any direct impact on my figure, but it's still not good, So I indulge. I'll go through these phases, and that can happen with sweets, with Coke, but that can happen with a lot of other types of food as well. So I can just go through like these moments of big indulgence, and like people who know me well and know me for being usually quite reserved or rational, moderate, and kind of calm, they're always kind of surprised, like, what's this? And I think this is my SE overdrive, my SE grip. Another thing that I do a lot, I don't know if this is indicative of SE, is that if I'm stressed, I'd be in my house and I would obsess over like visualizing certain things. So if like I don't see perfect order, usually I'm quite an orderly person. I like to order things around. I think this is good for this house because there's no J in this house, so I'm kind of taking care of the order when I'm around here. But like when I'm in my apartment, I just look at when I'm very stressed, it's kind of not healthy, but I just look at the floor, like for a long time, just make sure there's no spot. And I just go back and I just would obsess over like these things that other times when it's healthier can inspire me to write things, to write insights down, partially inspired or triggered by them. But in these grip moments, they become kind of almost like adversaries. They can stress me even more, and I try to fix them. But the more I try to focus on them to fix them, the more I focus and obsess over them. So it often comes down to, is it well organized? Is it clean? Often I tell myself, be careful with the SE grip. Don't do that. I don't even know if that's the sign of it, but I can tell you that I do that. So those were kind of indications of how I think my SE can manifest itself negatively, as well as more positively with regards to the other things that I talked about. And if I have more ideas in the future, I will talk about them. I mean, I could talk about a lot of other kinds of art that I enjoy. The fact that I like following the advice of a friend, I find it very useful to kind of change my desktop background, the aesthetics of my background of my phone every once in a while. It's refreshing and it feels good. So I do that too, and it's probably related to SE to some extent as well. So that was a snippet. Please let me know in the comments how you yourself relate to your SE, if SE is in your main function stack. Okay guys, see you soon. Have a lovely day. And for me, there's only a few hours of sunshine left, so I better go for a walk now. See ya.